Daikaiju Network podcast where we have a very healthy obsession with kaiju. I am your co-host, Kent, and with me is your other co-host,
Jason. How's it going, everyone?
So for anyone who missed our social media postings and you see that graphic kind of down in that part of your screen, you're going, Terror Beneath the Sea. I thought you were going to do 6 Ultra Brothers versus the Monster Army. Well,
we were going to do that.
We were, yes. But I had posted, we found 2 sources that had that film. Sadly, neither one had a version of the film that had English subs. So I did an emergency couple phone calls to Jason while he was in the middle of working. I got him fired. No, that's not true.
No.
But I'm kind of like, okay, well, there's no version, of this film with English subs. Do you have any ideas as far as what you want to do? He basically said, well, figure it out and let me know. And I said, okay. So it took me
actually said, go fuck yourself. No,
yeah.
Not really.
And so it took me about 10 minutes, and I said, Terror Beneath the Sea is one that I, every once in a while over the last 2.5 years, have been trying to get Jason to do, either as far as a commentary or as a discussion. So I found a version of it on YouTube, and I said, all right, this douchebag can actually watch it. He put me in charge. He can go screw himself now if he doesn't want to do it, because he put me in charge. And I said, let's do Terror Beneath the Sea. End of discussion. And then I dropped the mic and I walked out to "This is the story of a hurricane." So, we are doing.
That's true.
We are doing 1966's Terror Beneath the Sea, starring Sony Chiba and Peggy Neal, along with a host of other actors, a couple of which I've seen in other either movies or TV shows. In fact, one of the henchmen in this film plays Fangar and Johnny Sacco and the Flying Robot. So, yeah, here we are. This is our first discussion, I think, since, what was it, Gilgameth? What was the last one I think we did?
No, it was the whole Ultra 7 viewing that we did.
Oh.
The 3-parter.
There's a reason why I guess.
He's already forgotten about it.
Oh, by the way, Jason, I totally forgot about this. This doesn't pertain to anything about this podcast, but we're live, so what the hell? Don't forget your lanyard when you do your packing for G-Fest.
I'll try not to, but can't guarantee anything. So,
but we use that for name tag holders when we go to G-Fest.
I just put on my shirt,
nice
so.
Kaiju shirts. So anyways, before we proceed any further, Jason, any housekeeping that needs to be done here?
Yeah, I just want to mention that if you're watching us on YouTube, if you see that red subscribe button down below this video, make sure to hit that and subscribe to our channel, and as well as hit that notification bell icon so you won't miss anything as far as when we're going to go live, and as well as smash that like button down below so you,
smash it good.
So we can get at least try to get some recommendations on YouTube, try to get it up there as well. And you not only we're on YouTube, we're also on Twitch as well, streaming there. And we've got audio versions of our podcasts over at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and as well as TuneIn. And you can watch and listen to both the video and audio versions of our episodes at our own website at DaikaijuNetwork.com. And you can also view us live there as well.
By the way, I just want to say thank you to people who have been subscribing to our YouTube channel. I have noticed over the
we're almost 200 subscribers.
I am noticing over the last couple months that our subscription, it hasn't been growing like substantially, but it's been trickling upwards, over the last couple months at least that I've noticed. So we are one away from 200. Maybe we should have a contest. Whoever is the first 200, if you're going to G-Fest, we will pay for your hotel room. No, we won't.
But speaking of G-Fest, in a couple of weeks, we will be doing a kind of our annual preview of the event.
What was an annual preview?
Yeah, what was the annual preview? Well, when we've been going every year, and since we've been sort of starting the podcast, we've been kind of doing it every year. So it's going to be kind of our annual preview, and I think it's going to be our last one because for me, it'll be kind of the last event for me to go to for God knows how long. So.
I may or may not go in subsequent years. This is going to be the first year in which I'm taking my son. He's 7. Like I told Jason off air, I said I still think he's a tad young to like really appreciate nearly every aspect of the convention. But like we were saying, I think his favorite thing is going to be the dealer's room. So, we'll just kind of see how things go. May or may not go next year. It's going to suck without having Jason there because it's really in the past like the only time we got together for a number of years because we live far enough apart that it's not like we can just hop in a car whenever and like punch each other.
We did do that when you used to live here in Iowa. We did that for the first 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, damn, it feels like so long ago we did one of those preview shows, and like you brought it up, and I immediately was like, oh yeah, we used to do that.
And I know we
used to do so much.
Yeah, and I know we've done them a couple times over at your place a week before.
Yeah. Well, I guess it sounds like we're doing it again because you told us a week ago that you're going, hey, like the week before we leave, I'm coming to your house. I'm like, there we go.
Well, I told you like a few or so months ago I was planning.
I didn't remember. Like I said, I was going to ask you, and I kept forgetting to ask. So, oh well. I've had
now he knows
school and all that, so. And all this other crap that's been going on. It's been a rough year for me.
He's becoming an old fart. That's what it is. So.
I got COVID in the first part of the year, and I'm not joking. I really do think it screwed with my brain in some ways. I'm not kidding when I say that. So, fuck COVID, by the way. So anyway, are we kind of ready to dive more into Terror Beneath the Sea?
Yeah, was it one thing I want to mention before we do that? I just saw an article the other day that was it both Ultraman, Neos, and Cosmos is going to be available on DVD here on the 20th of September. So, yeah, it should be available for pre-order because I saw this article from via Kaiju Battle, and from what I saw in that article, there were a couple links that went to these. So if you haven't, if any of you haven't noticed that these two Ultraman shows are already going to be coming out here in the next few months, it should be available for pre-order at least. So if you want to get those pre-ordered today, I would say do so right now.
Well, yeah, they're not actually available yet for pre-order.
Gotcha.
So hold your horses there. So, yeah, if it's coming out in September, this is what, June, probably be available for pre-order starting next month, probably about the time G-Fest starts. I'm going to say like maybe mid-July.
Probably.
So, gosh, I love having all this stuff from Mill Creek, and everybody knows my bitching as far as like how I don't like the coloring of the subtitles that they've
And speaking of Mill Creek, I think they're going to be doing some sort of a giveaway on Ultraman Day from what I saw, because I think I saw this via their posting on Facebook.
How about like an automatic subscription to get the Blu-ray/DVD versions of every Ultraman thing that you're doing? Because what I was about to say before you interrupted me, you bastard, was that
well, you always interrupt me, so
it's been very difficult to keep up with some of this stuff. Like every once in a while, if I don't see something on Facebook from some people, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, like I haven't heard anything about Ultraman. Then I'm trying to search things up. But yeah, like, man, there's just so much Ultraman stuff. to try to keep track of, like, I think this Ultraman Mabius collection that I got right up here, I think was the most recent one that they
that just came out here.
And then before that, it was Ultra 7X, and then I think that was about the time we were wrapping up our Ultra 7, and both of us are kind of like, really?
so here's the posting from Mill Creek Entertainment via their Facebook page. Ultraman Day is coming, and we can't wait to celebrate with you all with 10 days of deals and giveaways starting Friday, July 1st. Stay tuned to this account to learn how you can get in on all the ultra spectacular events.
So is that actually the next collection to come out, or is there another collection that's coming out before that?
That's as far as I seen was both Neos and Cosmos coming soon.
Let me check.
The only one besides that was the Mabius one that just came out.
Ultraman Milk. This episode brought to you by Research. Okay, I think this was the page I typically go to find releases. I don't need the history. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm on Mill Creek's website.
The website isn't always... Okay. Okay, yeah, Mabius and stuff was the most recent at May 24th. And then planned... Yeah, Ultraman Kids 3000 for June 28th. In fact, I may have even... And then there's Ultraman Zerth, July 26th.
Okay.
And then you're talking about Neos on September 20th, Ultraman Cosmos and all that, also the 20th. So Zerth is supposed to come, according to this anyways. Let me check. I think I was Ultraman 3000, Ultraman Kids 3000. Ultraman Kids 3000. I can't remember if I looked this up. Oh, must not be available for I guess even that is not available for pre-order yet, and that's supposed to be coming out. Wait a minute, that's supposed to be coming out here. Like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on here? Like,
by the way, I kind of like how Mill Creek named the whole Ultra series. They called it the Ultraverse. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I just went to their... Wait a minute. So, no Ultraman Kids? Did that thing maybe get postponed? Or something? Because I'm not even seeing it on their website.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything on that.
Yeah, because it's in 3 days. That's according to that wiki site, it's supposed to be released.
I probably wouldn't trust much of wiki.
Oh well. But
anyways, that's kind of all I wanted to cover on the Neos and Cosmos, and we just kind of ventured a little bit more than I thought.
That's what happens on this podcast. That's what happens on this podcast. So anyways, we are diving now into 1966's Terror Beneath the Sea, like I said, starring Sony Chiba and Peggy Neal. I've got a synopsis of the film here. So here we go. Let me scroll down so I get everything in one fell swoop. Okay. When a submarine missile test goes awry, journalists Jenny Gleason and Ken Abe go investigating around a small sliver of land where the test took place. As they dive, Jenny catches a glimpse of a humanoid fisherman. When Lieutenant Colonel Brown doesn't believe Jenny saw a creature, she and Ken go back to the spot where she saw the creature. But they're kidnapped and taken to an underwater base 3,000 feet below the surface of the ocean. There they're greeted by the evil Dr. Moore, who turns people into the creatures, which he calls water cyborgs. Why, I don't know, because there's no mechanical parts. Whatever, these people are goofy as hell anyway. He shows Ken and Jenny the process of turning a person into an obedient water cyborg. Dr. Moore even has several of his water cyborgs kidnap Professor Howard for reasons. By the way, Professor Howard is played by Andrew Hughes, who you've definitely seen in other films. He was in Golden Bat, if you've seen that. He's also the one...
he's kind of that older gentleman who always plays the science. scientist.
in Destroy All Monsters. The line I always remember him for whatever funny reason in Destroy All Monsters is after Rodan attacks Moscow. He's the guy who goes, "He's in Moscow." Okay. With the professor's kidnapping, Brown goes out looking for the 3 missing people. Meanwhile, Moore wants to change Ken and Jenny into water cyborgs. He partially succeeds until Brown launches a missile at one section of Moore's underwater base. The explosion knocked out the supersonic instruments used to control the water cyborgs. As a result, the water cyborgs go on a killing spree, shooting, clawing, and strangling anyone in their path. And all the guns look like the same guns James Bond used and all have silencers.
Pew, 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 pew.
Pew, 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 pew. Ken, Jenny, and Professor Howard.
Well, it is Kenny, so.
In a way, I guess. Battling several water cyborgs and ultimately confronting Moore as he attempts to flee in an escape capsule. Our 3 heroes manage to get into the capsule and flee, leaving Moore at his base to die in the chain reaction explosion from Brown's missile. Later, Brown notices water cyborg-like footprints on the beach. He follows the footprints and realizes it's the flipper marks left by Ken and Jenny as they head out to the ocean for another dive, and the movie comes to a close. So this is a movie that is very wacky. It is produced by Toei, the same studio that did Golden Bat. In fact, Golden Bat, I think, was produced 1 year earlier, if I remember, or that it was earlier in '66. I already forgot.
Let me look up.
Year.
Research time.
Research. We need to have a jingle for that.
Golden Bat cigarette?
I smoke. But there really isn't a whole lot to this movie. I mean, my synopsis of the film here was actually a bit longer than I initially thought it would be. I thought it was only going to be just a few sentences.
So Golden Bat did come out the same year, December 21st.
When was this?
July 1st. So this one came out before Golden Bat.
And yet this one was in color. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, well. But it's a very simple movie. I mean, to me, this film reminds me of the type of films like a King Kong Escapes, that it's not only made for a general audience, but maybe even to a certain extent a slightly younger audience, perhaps, even though there's some interesting violent sequences in this film.
But it also kind of reminded me a bit like Golden Bat in a way, just with a different circumstance, as I mentioned to you earlier. And I know that you've also mentioned that it kind of reminded you a little bit of some ways of how some of the Ultraman shows sort of played and how it was kind of stylized or kind of set up in a way.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just how it's shot, how the sets look, how the story is structured, and how the story itself is written, it does remind me an awful lot of those original Ultraman episodes. And I'm talking about the original 65 show. It just reminds me of that because, look, let's face it, some of the kaiju suits and sets weren't always the highest quality in the original Ultraman, which I think adds some of the charm to that series. In fact, I probably said that many times when we covered that series an odd number of years back. Mm-hmm. And I think the same is true here. The water cyborg suits look exactly like that. Suits. They are not the highest quality. They're still pretty cool. I mean, the fact that they detailed like scale type appendages, not appendages, but scale type skin on these suits is still really cool, but they are a two-piece in a number of areas. But then it's so funny because the paint job, when you look closely at some of the scenes, the paint job isn't all that great. Like there's some spots where the paint's wearing off,
and some of the
suits are torn. Like at the knee, there was one where towards the end when the water cyborgs are just going awry, there's one when you look, there's a rip here on the actor and you see the actor's skin. Like they're so cheap and goofy that I love it.
And then as well as the close-ups of when they kind of do the transition, the stop motion transitioning of when they transition one person from a human being into one of these water cyborgs.
Do we even get a reason as far as why this Dr. Moore is making people into water cyborgs? I don't think we're ever given a reason, but my guess
he did.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he did mention it. I think he just didn't quite catch it. He just kind of mentioned trying to protect he built these or he transitioned these people into water cyborgs to kind of help protect and help build the civilization of what this mad scientist was trying to achieve in that water base station.
Such a flimsy and stupid reason, but at the same time, I love it. Look, I'm not going to lie. I'm just going to say this right now, and I know we're terrible about this on this podcast because by and large, we try to, hold our cards to the vest and kind of maybe try to keep you in suspense as far as what we think about a movie or a show, but we're pretty bad at that, but I guess that's fine.
Yeah.
I like this movie an awful lot. And like I said, this reminded me an awful lot of the first Ultraman series. I love that first Ultraman series. It's one of my all-time favorite TV series. I love Golden Bat. Obviously, like I said, Golden Bat and this movie were both made by Toei. And I love the cheesiness of both films. If I had watched this movie, let's say maybe 15 years ago, I would have been like there are aspects of it I like, but it's too stupid. And after I kind of got to a point in my life where not only was I older, but after experiencing college life and reality and the prospects of, graduating and getting out into the world and all that, I got to a point where I'm like, I miss the old times where I could just sit down, have fun, and not take things so seriously and just watch and enjoy stuff for the simple sake of entertainment. And when I got reacquainted with my kaiju fanness back in 2012, technically late 2011, I really came to appreciate this genre even more. And that's not to say I never did appreciate. I did when I was a kid. When you're a kid, it's like, like dinosaurs and creatures fighting and explosions and shit. But then as I got older, when I became a teenager and then in my early 20s, you get preoccupied with jobs, you get preoccupied with your college, you get preoccupied with trying to get yourself ready to graduate and enter the workforce, you get preoccupied with women, in my case anyways. And so, you kind of just are stuck in real world, and that's fine up to a point. But for me, after a while, it was like, I just want to enjoy stuff again in that childlike manner where it's like, and I know for whatever reason, this phrase that I'm about to bring up has a bad connotation for a lot of people, and I don't know why, because some people think this is not a good reason to enjoy a movie, but I think it is. So if you're one of those people, grow up. I like a lot of movies that you just turn off your brain and you just take it for what it is. Okay. And like Jason and I, we were already talking about, like, yeah, there's some goofy shit in this movie that really makes no sense. But as I also said, I love it. It's so stupid that I love it. Yeah. Hanuman I actually didn't like. There were moments of that movie I liked, but by and large it was bad. But Terror Beneath the Sea is so much better than that movie. What the Japanese one looks like, I don't know, and I don't know if we'll ever know. I would like to watch it with English subs, but that's for another time.
Maybe one of the vendors will probably have it over at G-Fest. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But I like this movie. It's so bad in many respects, but you can tell the movie doesn't take itself uber seriously, that it knows what it is, and it goes with it. You have this Lieutenant Colonel Brown played by an American dude, and again, like we've seen in so many of these Japanese sci-fi films, a lot of these English American actors tend to just be awful, and I love it. And even he's dubbed in the English version of this film.
Why am I not surprised?
Andrew Hughes, it was hard for me to figure out whether or not he was dubbed. Part of me thought maybe not, because when he spoke, it seemed like nothing was off in terms of timing. So I don't know if he was dubbed for this, but I know he was dubbed in movies like Destroy All Monsters and what have you. So
I'm not sure if Peggy Neal was.
Peggy was dubbed here, yes.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've seen X from Outer Space, so I don't know if she was dubbed. She may have been dubbed in the English version of that one too, I think. I'll have to rewatch that one.
To me, it just feels weird when you try to dub someone that's speaking in your own language. To me, that's just sort of dumb, and it's just sort of extra unnecessary work.
I have a theory about that, but before I dive into that, I want to ask you a question. Have you seen the actual Japanese version of King Kong vs. Godzilla?
I think I might have several years ago when I was at your place. When you brought the DVD to you 1 year on the G Fest, and we watched it on your laptop. Yeah.
Do you remember the submarine Seahawk scene of the captain?
It's been some years ago, so maybe.
He was dubbed in the English version. And here's my theory. First of all, I didn't know he was dubbed until I saw the Japanese version, because they did one hell of a job with his dubbing on the English dub of that film. The real actor, his real voice is a higher pitch. And the dub, if you remember the Universal one, he had this deeper, kind of more manly man voice. And that's where my theory comes in, is that I think if the men have higher pitched voices, they dub them because they want, we're American. Like, oh, we're muscular, we're big and bad, which is dumb shit. And then I think for the women, it's somewhat similar in that if we don't think you come off maybe as sexy enough or what have you, we'll dub you too. Because they dubbed Linda Miller in King Kong Escapes. She even said that. And I mean, it's easy too when you watch the English version of that movie. It's clearly she was dubbed. And I think that's the reason why. It's very... it's about portraying this image of manly, virulent men and very sexy, suave women. And I think that's the reason why. So it's dumb. Yeah, I agree. It's dumber than a bag of hammers, but I think that's, I've been talking too much. Why don't you...
Let's see. Where to begin? Oh, as far as the acting portion, I think a majority of the people in this movie, even some of the extras in here, I think they did a pretty good job with the acting portion. But when it comes to Peggy Neal, it feels like to me. In my opinion, I think she just wasn't quite in it as much, and or maybe she was going a little bit too overboard with some of the acting portion, and just sort of kind of took me out of the viewing experience a little bit. So I think she should have probably sort of toned it down a little bit and maybe just try to make things a little bit more believable, like the villain, Andrew Hughes and Sony Chiba did, because they kind of made things feel and look believable with their acting.
I think, too, part of the problem, I will agree with you up to a small point. I don't think I don't think the acting across the board was nearly as good as you think it was. I think it's all over the place. I think it goes anywhere from having at best good, like with Sony Chiba, and even then a couple moments of his are kind of funny and goofy.
But then the other thing too is that some of the military or the Navy guys they just their acting was a bit so.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. Like, we just talked about how all these people, the English actors included, were all dubbed even. And I think when it comes to... It's interesting because we talk about acting in an English dub movie and we talk about the Japanese actors while they're dubbed and we're like, oh, yeah, it's either good or bad. But then when it comes to these English actors that are also strangely dubbed in a movie like this, I think it throws off just exactly where their acting fits, because when you have someone else dubbing you, I think that can sort of affect how you view the performance, at least with the English actors, because we're English-speaking people. Like, for quite a while, even though I knew Linda Miller, even back when I first saw the movie, was dubbed in King Kong Escapes, to me it made her acting look awful in that movie. Kong, King Kong. And I was just like, oh my God, this is awful. But then as I got older and I just kind of started thinking about it more, I'm like, that's probably a little unfair to her, because the dubbing, I think, could kind of mess that up for people like us who speak the same language and know that the same actor, actress also speaks the same language, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I will even say this. Look, and I understand Peggy Neal died here not too long ago, and but I still feel like it's important for us to be honest in terms of our perception of things. Yeah, I mean, Peggy Neal, at best she was fine. I think part of the problem too is the fact that maybe the director wasn't all that great, although the director was the same guy who also directed the movie. I don't think I actually have a picture of it here. Sadly I don't, at least nothing that's really...
Well, you can just show the package there.
This is a pack. He directed the movie called Gokei the Body Snatcher from Hell. It's kind of a creepy movie, kind of a decent movie too. I would, and by the way, this is a collection called When Horror Came to Shochiku. It's the same studio that...
Put it towards the center there.
I can't tell because my preview window is wider than the actual deal. It's the same studio that did The X from Outer Space, which is on here. I already talked about Gokei being on here. There's also a movie called The Living Skeleton, which very creepy movie. I really like it. And then there's a movie called Genocide, about a swarm of ferocious bugs carrying an H-bomb. Goofier than shit, boring in many ways as well. So that one you can skip. But the director here, I think, and again, I don't know all the information behind the production of this movie in terms of like budget and like filming time, which I would assume was probably pretty short. I think maybe part of the problem with some of these actors too is the director, because sometimes, as we've seen even in Hollywood productions, you can have by and large good, if not great actors turn out bad performances because they have a director that just either doesn't care or isn't all that good, etc.
Well, and also it could be, the writing of the story.
Yeah, but even then, good to great actors, they either can add certain dialogue or add nuances to their performance to really give it more oomph. And again, it's still ultimately up to the director, because we've all heard stories where actors will sometimes butt heads with the director over how a character in general is portrayed or how a certain scene should be done, etc. So, I understand Japanese filmmaking is a lot different, especially during this time. it's just a lot different than what it was and is here in the States. And, you know, I've seen The X from Outer Space 2 or 3 times. Again, I like Peggy Neal. But again, like even then in that movie, her performance wasn't all that great, although she disappears for a large chunk of that movie too. But yeah, I think the acting is kind of all over the place. The dubbing, I think, in terms of the American actors kind of throws things off for us a little bit. But I think Sony Chiba, by and large, is probably the best. I would say Andrew Hughes probably next. And then it's just kind of, you know, pick your next person after that, in my opinion. So I think it's all over the place. Mostly cheesy, hammy performances, in my opinion. But again, I think that's the charm. There are going to be some people who look at a movie like this and say it's just terrible. Like, what a waste of time. Why would you enjoy that? And it's like, well, first and foremost, I'm a huge lover of science fiction and that sort of thing. So that tickles my fancy here in one regard. But on top of that too, it's like the thing that I think a lot of people forget, and I see it an awful lot in today's TV shows and movies and stuff, anything new that's come out or is coming out, is that you have to understand what you're getting yourself into. When I watch a movie called Terror Beneath the Sea and I read the description of the movie, I'm like, okay, this is not Oscar material, but damn it, this still sounds like it could be fun. And yeah, there's still the potential of it being bad. I don't love every movie that I've ever seen. You know, but I usually give everything a chance. I try to meet the movie or the series on its level, which, like with Ultra 7, when we covered that at the beginning of the year, I believe, in my opinion, I gave it a fair shot because there were certainly episodes that I enjoyed. A lot of it I didn't like. And I tried to meet that series on its own level. Even though I had certain expectations, I'm like, okay, that's not what we're getting here. So I'm going to just try and go with it. What does this series want me to think of it in terms of its approach to a plot, etc.? And most of the time I didn't think the series lived up to sort of the mission it wanted me to follow along. This movie told me this thing is going to be goofier than shit. It was. It's not the highest quality in terms of production, but it's damn fun for about an hour and a half. And yeah, I met it on its level, and I go, yeah, certain things are bad. Some of the costuming is bad. Some of the acting is terrible. Some of the dubbing makes some of these people act and look stupid. But my God, is it fun. I mean, it's just like, I'm having fun with this. I'm having fun with it because it's terrible, and I'm having fun with it because this movie knows what it is, and it's not trying to take itself uberly seriously, and it's not trying to do anything else. It's just like, we know what we are, and yeah, try to meet us on that level. So,
yeah, and yeah, with some of the things too with this film, probably the one thing that I think that they could have maybe reduced the runtime or could have taken out was the part of maybe cut down the transitioning part from human to the water cyborgs a bit, because it sort of reminded me of that whole famous submarine chase in Latitude Zero.
Oh, I had forgotten about that movie. That's one we still have to cover one of these times too.
Well, I know we discussed about it, but I don't think we've done the commentary thing.
That's
on
true,
that.
yeah. I don't think we've done the commentary on it.
But anyways, like that transitioning part in this film sort of reminded me that really long submarine chase from Latitude Zero, where it just seemed like it just sort of took forever, and I think that they should have shortened that up quite a bit because it seems like it ran for maybe about 5 minutes. That's how it felt to me. In a way, is like maybe a decent portion of the film, the way it felt to me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the transition scene went longer than it needed to. Yeah, I don't know if it's just one of those things where they thought the audience would find it interesting, or maybe they were trying to meet a certain runtime and thought, well, this is one area we could extend the film a little bit. But yeah, it was one of those where I'm not going to lie, I checked out for a couple minutes during this scene. I was with it to begin, and then I realized, oh, okay, like this is going to go through a very detailed process. And the funny thing is that when it's all said and done, it wasn't that intricate of a process to begin with, but yet it felt like it was because of just how they stretched it out. But otherwise, I think, in my opinion, other than that sequence, I thought the pacing throughout much of the film was pretty good. I mean, this isn't an overly long movie, and in my opinion, it does tend to move at a quick pace. The thing is, though, one could even make the argument, I believe, that for as simple as this story is, the movie itself still could have been overall shorter. Yeah, I think on some level, if a person were to make that argument, I think that would fit. There were a couple other moments where I partially checked out for a moment. There were, I think, a couple scenes where some of the fellow journalists were on screen for maybe, I don't know, a moment or two. It wasn't too terribly long, but it was just enough to where you're like, these people don't matter because they're not going to get involved in any significant way to the plot.
Or to me, they just felt like some of them felt a little bit uninterested in a way when it came to their acting, which also sort of maybe kind of took me out of the film a little bit, and also kind of made me pause the movie a couple of times so I can do other things and then unpause it again to play it. So yeah, there's kind of some things that just took me out of the film a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, again, this movie isn't overly long, but there are moments where it feels a bit longer. But yeah, I think, again, that's just unfortunate, I guess. But again, this isn't a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. So
I mean, what do you think of just kind of the overall story? I mean, we've already to some small degree discussed the plot, but I mean, is this something that you found at least even remotely interesting, or what have you, when you first kind of went into this?
Well, to me, at first, I thought it was just going to be sort of something along the lines like the creature from the Black Lagoon, like it was just going to be, maybe a creature or two that they sort of discovered in the sea that they stumbled upon, and then it kind of wreaks havoc maybe in a town or something like that. It was sort of that way at first, but then it just sort of, went into a completely different direction than I expected to, because this is the first time I've seen this movie. And then once it kind of went into this whole underwater base and everything, then it just sort of kind of took me into this thinking, it's like, oh, it just felt like something that you've sort of seen from other shows and other Japanese shows and Japanese films from around that time, like, as we mentioned, Golden Bat, and then the Ultraman series. So then when it comes to that point, it just kind of felt like it's just sort of that kind of the rehashed science fiction sort of story that we've seen from both Japanese shows and films there, but with a different twist and maybe some tweaks to the story / plot in there, and certain maybe interesting things added to this film, but otherwise, kind of the overall thing is just kind of sort of the same thing that we've seen. So it's just kind of where I'm just like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, I've seen things like this before, but just a little things added here and there, just to kind of make things maybe interesting and different a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, I mean, I like it. As we said, the actual story here is really paper thin, and on that level, I'm fine with it. I think sometimes simplicity is a fine thing to do. I don't think everything needs to be uberly intricate and like 3-layer chess. It seems to me anymore like a lot of the current generation of moviegoers and watchers want, this very deep type of experience with films. And I think, yeah, that's fine to have every once in a while, but what's wrong with having a simple film every once in a while? As far as what it actually is, like I said, I had missed the whole point as far as why this Dr. Moore was performing these experiments. But for what it is, I'm okay with it. If I had to rate it on a 10 scale, 10 being like great, I probably would be like, it's about a 7, 7.5 for me. Like, it's good enough. It's just ever so slightly above average because I'm having a good enough time with not just it, but everything else around it. Because again, as I've stated 100 times already about this movie, it's not taking itself seriously. It knows what it is. And I'm fine with that. I think it's okay. It's fine. As long as you entertain me during most of your runtime, I'm with you. And yeah, I think it's okay.
So, what do you think of the miniatures that they had for this film, as well as the set, mainly the underwater base station there?
I love it. Even though they're not the greatest miniatures you're ever going to see, I still love it because, again, I am a sucker for a lot of these older Japanese sci-fi films where you got these miniatures. Again, this reminds me of that original Ultraman series. The miniatures here a lot of times remind me of the miniatures you would see in a lot of those Ultraman episodes. And I love it. I love it. That Ultraman series is one of my favorite series of all time. And there's something, I know some people don't like it when I say cheese or anyone says cheese, but it kind of is because when you look at it, they're miniatures. But that doesn't mean that I disrespect the work. I don't. I am a fan here. I'm on a kaiju type podcast. If I hated it, why would I spend my time being on a podcast hating something? I got better things to do with my time. I do respect and I love this stuff. I do love Eiji Tsuburaya. Does that mean, though, I think all of his work was good? No. And in fact, at times I've been critical of that. Same thing with other special effects.
Just like the last discussion that we had.
Yeah, which I hope we never have again. But again, I just think that I like it. I still think the miniature work is still good. I mean, for what you're wanting to do and probably for the thin budget you had for this film, it's still good. I still think it's good. Does it still look like miniature sets? Yeah. Am I okay with that? Yeah. I'm having a good time here. And I enjoy it. Again, I love that original Ultraman series. This movie, almost from beginning to end, reminds me of that series. And I love it. There's a childlike charm to it because, God damn it, the world has been so fucking depressing for a handful of years now. It's like, I just want to escape for a while sometimes into some entertainment and just kind of forget everything else exists. And something like this works because I kind of get in touch with that childlike self and I'm like, yeah, like this doesn't look all that great, but I'm having fun here because this movie or this series even knows that I know it's fake, but it's still fun. I'm enjoying seeing weird creatures or superheroes and kaiju and things blow up and all that. And I love it.
Yeah, I really do like the miniatures that they use for this as well, and as well as the setting, just kind of gives me that nostalgic feeling every time, with these TV shows and movies from the 50s and 60s, and sometimes in the 70s, just kind of depends. But I really just kind of like how they made things just look simple and just so complicated with with just so many things that they have on hand, and trying to come up with creative new ways with just maybe just simple things, maybe lying around or they find at hardware stores or wherever, and then they just come up with like these intricate looking control centers for sets and like screens and buildings and what have you. I mean, it's just, I really like how things just kind of that style and look to them with many of these sets from this time period, as well as miniatures, and it's just interesting just to kind of see how they've done with some of these things and just kind of see them up close and just see the details on some of these things, and even like some of the documentaries that probably some people have seen in the past, and just see how they've done things in the past, like the underwater sea with like an atomic explosion that they film them upside down and water with food coloring, so on and so forth. It's just very interesting how they come up with a lot of these things just for sets and props and all that shenanigans.
Well, yeah, and I found too, like there were some map moments in this movie, like when Lieutenant Colonel Brown and Andrew Hughes in one scene are by the shore looking at Jenny and Ken going out into the ocean. And you could clearly tell that the nuclear reactor looking structures were placed in later. I think the hotel or whatever that building was behind them was real, but the nuclear reactor type structures weren't. And then like when Jenny first encounters a water cyborg, you have some very obvious, horrible matte shots of like the water cyborg like popping up, and making it look like it's right there chasing her when it's a separate shot.
I remember later, that one. Is like it was sort of, you see it pop up and then they just sort of reran that sequence. There's like, wait, did I? what the heck is going on here? But speaking of like map paintings and all that, I remember when Andrew Hughes, Sony, and Peggy were kind of tied down to those chairs, and then they was it Moore and then a couple of the other scientists come in, and the one scientist is just kind of looking up this way and just talking for like a minute or two, just without looking at anyone. And you can see kind of the map paintings that were kind of added in between. You can definitely tell that they were map paintings, but also that
work and all that stuff.
Yeah, but also that scene is just like, are you gonna just talk to like the ceiling up there or to the people in front of you?
It's hilariously corny and bad. But as I was watching that scene, which interestingly enough goes on quite a bit of a long time, and I wonder if the artist who painted that matte was like, no, I spent a long time painting this. Make sure you have it in the scene to make it worth my while for all the time I spent on it. But it goes on a little bit longer than it should. And I thought to myself as this scene was occurring, I'm like, what was it what did it really look like when this actor was filming that scene in that moment? Like, were we seeing studio lights up here? Like, what was it we were actually looking at?
maybe the end of the set and everything. That could be.
It could be.
It could be one of the things. But then also when the other scene is that when Sony Chiba and Pig and Neil were captured, they were in that base for the first time, and then they look out. When they're kind of in this enclosed cell, and the back part where it had the window just kind of looking out into the sea, and they heard something, and I remember the one shot where they had their backs to the camera and then they were looking out. All of that was a complete still. You can definitely notice that it was a complete still, and kind of that whole window was just cut out just to kind of have that the sea visual and stuff. So it's like it was kind of it was a bit odd in a way, instead of just doing like a regular. It should have been like maybe just see them moving a little bit and just have that whole window area there just be like a matte screen or something.
Yeah, there are a lot of interesting matte shots in this movie, and again, they're awful, but I still love it. I love it. I do. And again, one of the things I want to hit on, and I briefly mentioned this during the synopsis, when the water cyborgs start going crazy at the end and just start killing everybody in their path, the funny thing is that just about everybody in this underwater base has access to what are they? I think they're called PPKs, the guns are, or whatever they are. I call them the James Bond guns otherwise. But they're the little pistols that are like that long, and they all of them have silencers, and it's either you have one of those pistols or they're using harpoon guns, and those are like the only weapons. I'm like, there are no knives, like there's nothing else, like it's only these little pea shooters with silencers, or you're using a harpoon gun and you're just impaling people with it. It's so funny. Like
the one thing that and the surprising thing is like they don't have Uzis or like automatic weapons, M6 or what have you. But yeah, it was just sort of funny that they had these. I can't remember the specific name of the gun with silencers attached, even though silencers don't actually sound that way in real life. But yeah, it's just sort of weird and interesting at the same time that their only weapons on that base that they have is just those guns with silencer attachments to them, and then harpoons. You would at least expect them to have some kind of automatic weapon like an Uzi or M6 or what have you.
But yeah, I mean, just the limited weaponry is hilarious, and the fact that they're all of the same guns and they all have silencers, and these water cyborg creatures, they get a hold of them and they're using them. And I understand they were formerly like actual human beings, but just the fact that even then, after going under this transformation and sort of being hypnotized to some degree, because I don't know what other term to use, to being obedient type of creatures, the fact that they know what this thing is, they know where they are, and they know how to use it. It's hilarious. It's just so hilarious. They get into this gunfight down, and it's just so funny with all these silencers. And like you said, the silencers don't sound like that. And part of it is because, yeah, it's stock sound footage that you get in a lot of these, sci-fi Japanese films. But on top of that, they're not actually silent. They sound like an actual gun. It's like, what the hell? These silencers suck. These guns still sound loud.
and two is like their main goal and plan is to eventually, obviously take over the world, which is every evil bad guy's plan and stuff. I mean, you would expect to have better weapons than just these guns with silencers attached to them and harpoons.
Yeah, it's just one of those. It's just one of those deals where, again, I think budget definitely, plays a pretty big role into it. But
I wouldn't think so. I mean, with the amount of those guns that they had with silencers on them, I think they could have, replaced those with like automatic style kind of weapons in there instead of just these guns. But just like,
maybe they could have, but as kind of the funny saying goes, stay in your lane. So,
or as we do it, time out.
Yeah, I mean, it just, it is what it is. And again, this is one of those movies, like I said just a little bit ago, you have to know what you're getting yourself into, because if you don't, you definitely are going to be frustrated, furious, having an awful time, etc., etc., etc. So, like I said, it's one of the reasons why I like a movie like this, because it is so stupid, but it knows it's stupid, and it still goes along with it. If this were something that was trying to be more self-serious, I don't think I could go along with it, and I would be like, no, your production value is too bad in a lot of places, and your acting, by and large, isn't good enough to pass the sniff test. I would feel a lot different about this film, but it knows what it is, and that's probably the tagline for this particular episode, is that it knows what it is. And so
that's basically the tagline for everything we've discussed.
Not everything, no. Shin Godzilla tried to be more, and it's just kind of like, yeah, you're terrible. But
anyways, I can't think of anything else, unless if there's something that we might have forgotten to touch on, or you want to maybe go into final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything else. This is a plain Jane sort of plot film that there aren't enough intricacies to go. I'm actually surprised we've gone as long as we did on this. I mean, we started actually talking about the movie about 45 minutes ago, and that to me is longer than I thought we would spend talking about it. So
for me, I kind of thought we would go all the way to, maybe like an hour and a half into this, like the full show. But yeah, for me, it's kind of like you. It's just sort of something that you probably have story-wise sort of seen in both shows and films from Japan during this time period, and it's just kind of your usual sort of mad scientist trying to take over the world sort of thing, mate. But with some, interesting and unique things added to the story to kind of make it different, obviously. But overall, it's just kind of the same here and there. It's, decent, okay. Not obviously great here and there. Decent acting. But really good sets, miniatures in here. It probably could have been a little bit better, and also cut back on some of the scenes like we've discussed on as far as the transitioning from human to water cyborg there. But yeah, it's your kind of typical sci-fi horror flick from this time period here, and kind of the usual thing that you see in Japanese shows and films. So for me, when it comes to pass, rent, or buy, for me, I would say this would be a rent that you can probably see from time to time, not kind of like a regular viewing sort of thing. Like if you're kind of in the mood to see something just to kind of, escape from everyday life, and like that's probably the only thing that you can think of is that'd probably be the best time to watch it.
Yeah. Okay, here. My final thoughts here. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted. Go away here.
Yes, that is what you want.
Okay. Terror Beneath the Sea reminds me of the original Ultraman series with the lighting, costume design, and how the movie is shot. The movie is also a pretty corny film, but is incredibly entertaining. The water cyborg costumes are ridiculously cheap and flimsy, at times having been partially ripped and seeing some of the actors' skin. The plot is flimsy. We aren't given a reason. Well, that's not true. We just did, so I'll ignore that sentence. The movie at the same time is so bad that it's good. It is just a fun, silly watch. The dubbing is hilariously fun yet bad. The acting is all over the spectrum, ranging from pretty good to incredibly bad, and bad in a sense that's also comical. While not everyone will like the movie, so as a result, I can't say it's a buy for my rating, but it is most definitely a rent.
Nice. Both of us think it's a rent.
Yep. And I think with that, we can get ready to wrap up the episode here.
Yep. Yeah, I just wanted to mention one more time that if you haven't subscribed to us yet, and if you see that red subscribe button down below, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and as well as hit that notification bell icon and smash that like button down below. And not only we're streaming live on YouTube here, but we're also streaming live right on Twitch as well. So you got a couple different choices there, and we have the audio version of our podcast. So you can find us at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, as well as TuneIn. And we have both video and audio versions of our shows all archived, and you can watch us live over at our own website at DaikaijuNetwork.com.